Below the surface of the calm Western Indian Ocean lies a magical world hidden in a seemingly endless blue horizon. It is a world of contrasts and surprises, where simple organisms like this tiny jellyfish and charismatic giants like the humpback whale and this southern right whale are suspended side by side in the open water. The Western Indian Ocean touches the shoreline of East Africa and its many smaller and larger outlying islands. A large and complex system of ocean currents governs its functioning, keeping everything in balance, both in the water and on land, and regulating weather patterns. The two main forces at work here are the Somali Current in the north and the Agalas Current in the south. Fed by the South Equatorial Current, the Agalas and the Somali Currents mark the boundary of the Agalas and Somali Current large marine ecosystems. The functioning of these currents is essential to the health and productivity of the Western Indian Ocean region. As we move from the aquamarine of the deep ocean closer to the shore, we encounter coral reefs, one of the most diverse habitats in the world. With an unparalleled variety of colorful organisms that are adapted to live in this unique undersea environment. Far from being immobile stones in the sea, corals are active organisms with many fascinating ways of interacting with their environment. Further inshore, one might encounter seagrass beds, another highly diverse and productive ecosystem. Closer to the shore, the spiky roots of mangrove trees appear as the ocean gives way to land. Mangroves grow along shorelines and in river mouths and are able to tolerate very salty water. Together, coral reefs, seagrass beds, and mangroves constitute productive inshore ecosystems. These habitats break up wave energy and help to stock the open ocean by providing sheltered nurseries where fish and crustaceans may reach maturity. The Mashwala Peninsula in Madagascar is one of the jewels of the Agalas and Somali Current large marine ecosystems. It is one of the last places in the region where pristine rainforest meets the sea and coral reefs. Here, one can see the interdependence between a healthy terrestrial environment and a healthy marine environment. Healthy forest catchments and intact river basins protect the marine environment from siltation, which can kill corals. In return, healthy coral reefs and mangrove stands protect against cyclones and coastal erosion. Islands, particularly remote ones, often support unique species found nowhere else on Earth. Their isolation results in the separation of populations and eventually speciation, the evolutionary process by which new species arise. Aldabra in the Seychelles is the world's largest raised coral atoll, where some 100,000 lumbering giant tortoises and the last surviving flightless bird of the Indian Ocean Islands, the Aldabra rail, live under the protection of a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The Agalas and Somali Current large marine ecosystems are not only immensely beautiful and highly diverse, with large systems interacting in fine balance, they are also home to a large human population who are part and parcel of the ecosystem. The coastal population of the region is estimated to be 55 million. Some of the highest poverty levels in the world occur here. Coastal populations are greatly influenced by environmental phenomena linked to the Indian Ocean. And most nations in the region rely on the sea as a source of food security, subsistence livelihoods, and employment. For thousands of years, people have lived along these verdant shores, hunting and gathering at first, but slowly developing more advanced methods of resource harvesting. As people moved through the region over time, coming from many corners of the world to trade and settle, a unique and diverse cultural tapestry was woven. From the Isles of Zanzibar, where the Arabic and African cultures collided, to ancestor worship in Madagascar, where the present becomes indistinguishable from the past. From its bustling cities on the move to its small coastal communities and island groups. This is a region with many stories and its own strong identity. Today, the Agalas and Somali current large marine ecosystems are expected to provide an endless and growing stream of resources to people and governments. A rapid expansion in coastal populations and the development of urban centers has resulted in large-scale habitat degradation and deforestation along large parts of the coastline. This has disrupted the vital and delicate links between healthy shores and healthy oceans. Early artisanal fishers used mostly non-destructive methods of harvesting, like carefully woven traps. In some areas, reed traps are still in use. Elsewhere, they have been exchanged for wire or synthetic mesh equivalents. One of the greatest impacts on marine living resources has been the introduction of nylon nets and destructive fishing methods such as drag netting, poison, and dynamite fishing, which destroy coral reefs and other critical habitats. These, coupled with the arrival of the outboard motor, have allowed fishers to more rapidly deplete inshore resources and exploit fishing grounds that are further out to sea. No matter how the fish and crustaceans are caught, their destination is the same. From markets and sometimes through fishmongers, fish from the ocean feeds a growing population. And as fish stocks become depleted in other parts of the world, so distant water fishing fleets have moved into the Agalas and Somali current large marine ecosystems, some fishing legally, others not. Over Tanzanian waters, a patrol plane tries to monitor illegal fishing. This is one of the biggest problems facing the countries of the region, as they try to manage a vast expanse of sea. Any truly effective monitoring, control, and surveillance program requires strong cooperation and coordination between neighboring countries. The harvesting of sharks for their fins has had a big impact at the upper end of the food web. Shark fins are exported to the Far East, where they are highly valued as an ingredient in shark fin soup. Sea cucumbers are also an export commodity. In some parts of the region, inshore stocks of sea cucumbers have been decimated, and divers are forced to work in deeper and more dangerous conditions, often with poor dive gear. The cucumbers are sold on to a middleman for a pittance, which the diver uses to feed his family. A lack of livelihood options means that the diver has no choice but to continue putting pressure on an already overexploited resource.
What we see in the Western Indian Ocean is an increasing depletion of the fish stocks, destruction of the habitats, as well as pollution, which is coming in from different types of pressures. Now, these pressures do bring in a hardship to the communities as well as the countries. Some members in these communities can't even feed their families.
Once the natural balance of the healthy ecosystem is disrupted, Compounding pressures mean a rapid decline in ecosystem health, which affects the health and well-being of people and national economies. For example, the deforestation of mangroves for wood used in home construction and charcoal production results in the siltation of coral reefs and coastal erosion. There is also increased pressure for coastal land to be cleared for subsistence agriculture. Unsustainable farming techniques can result in rapid degradation of the land and heavy sediment inputs into rivers.
This system has died because of silting, because for this silt to have come here, it was due to an effect outside the system. Mangrove cannot withstand silting. And when mangrove died of silting, they affect the next system, which is the seagrass bed. This is a silted seagrass bed. And when it will die, it will affect the next system, which is the coral reef, and the whole system will die.
Poor management of human effluent has resulted in microbial and chemical contamination, threatening the lives of humans and marine organisms alike.
Well, these are not good for health, and when you let the leachate to flow into water system like that, you are potentially creating not only an environmental problem, but you are creating a healthy problem.
Tropical ecosystems have adapted to very low nutrient levels. Increased levels can mean unchecked growth of certain species of algae, which can smother coral reefs, creating toxins harmful to marine life.
We have a lot of marine and coastal pollution, which is caused by the lack of proper sanitation.
As human needs continue to increase, our impact on the environment grows. The Agalas and Somali Current large marine ecosystems are breathtakingly beautiful and attract tourists from all over the world. Coastal tourism is one of the largest contributors to the economies of the region. In countries like Kenya, coastal tourism makes up for around half of the total coastal economy. In South Africa, the largest economy in the region, it is estimated that the value of goods and services provided by the coastal and marine environment is equal to 35% of the country's gross domestic product. However, hotel developments with poor waste management plans and in some instances unsustainable tourism activities have put additional pressure on inshore habitats such as coral reef lagoons. Local fishers see their access to the coast restricted and fish stocks diminished as inshore habitats become damaged and reef fish are harvested for tourist consumption. This creates conflict.
In 3 years or 10 years, there will be no corals in the lagoon. No coral, no fish.
The irony is that as such areas become degraded through tourism, they become less attractive to tourists. This is not to say that all tourism is negative. Indeed, it has great potential for the economies of the region. But very careful thought has to be given to the pressure it puts on the very resource which draws people there in the first place. Carefully managed tourism can bring in much needed tourist revenue while limiting negative impacts on the environment. Large harbors without proper controls also pollute and degrade the marine environment and pose a significant risk of introducing alien invasive species, endangering the very lifeline which supports so many across the region. The Agalas and Somali Current large marine ecosystems are characterized by high biodiversity but relatively low biomass. Simply put, this means that there are a lot of different types of plants and animals within the region, but actual numbers of individual organisms are relatively low as they are spread out over a large area. This makes the ecosystem particularly sensitive to overexploitation. The interrelatedness of the countless creatures living there means that one broken link in the food web can have rippling effects across the entire ecosystem. In short, it is a system that can very easily be damaged if not managed properly. The large marine ecosystems extend over a vast area and cross international borders. Therefore, the ecosystems, their origins and interactions with the land cannot be considered in isolation.
Ecosystems go beyond the political boundaries of single countries. And that being so, in order to be able to do effective work on ecosystems, there's a need for the different countries to work together or collaborate or cooperate, if you like.
But there are pressures outside the system, like global climate change. Climate change can cause coral bleaching and coastal erosion. Even small increases in sea temperature can have devastating effects. In 1998, up to 95% of corals died in some areas, following an episode of rapid warming. Sea level rise and the increased incidence of tropical cyclones and storm surges, also related to climate change, has led to increased coastal erosion and threatens small island states in particular. In the face of so many growing pressures, what can be done? Can the system recover?
The governments are just grappling into what should be done for whatever event that tends to come. The project is intending to set up a long-term monitoring program that will be able to collect very credible information that can lead us into predicting these climatic variabilities that affect the human society.
We do know that systems can recover if pressure is taken off, provided it has not gone past the point of no return. And we know that human beings can change their habits if they understand the consequences of their actions, and there is a willingness and commitment shown by their leaders. In short, recovery is possible if everyone works together. There is a need for action to stem the tide of destruction and to move towards more sustainable use of marine resources. Across the region, countries are taking action at local, national, and regional levels so as to facilitate change and empower resource users to harvest and utilize resources in a sustainable way. If one travels through the region, one finds beacons of hope where people are taking steps, often with the help of governments and international donors, to implement projects that address environmental problems. In some cases, projects have sprung up without any support whatsoever. For example, on the island of Pemba in Tanzania, a local community was at the end of its tether with coastal erosion. Fields have been flooded and freshwater wells were becoming salty. They banded together and have started replanting mangroves. One schoolboy is said to have planted over 6,000 seeds on his own. In Mombasa, a sanitation project at Shimo Latewa prison is demonstrating new, low-cost and easy-to-maintain technology for treating human effluent.
Here we are just demonstrating a simple technology that can be applied anywhere, even at home.
In the Comores, a community-based conservation project has been instrumental in protecting an important area for turtle breeding. The community at Itsamia have not only made their beach a haven for green turtles, but are also planting hardy sisal trees to stem coastal erosion, which threatens the breeding beaches.
Avec la collaboration du point focal national de la Convention de Nairobi au niveau des Comores et avec la coordination du projet Lab basé à Nairobi. Donc pour eux, c'est une occasion pour eux de mener ces activités en vue de résoudre les problèmes qui sont sur la dégradation de la zone côtière et du milieu marin.
In Mauritius, a project to stop river basin erosion cultivates plants which will be planted to stabilize eroded slopes, thereby reducing the quantity of silt that is carried by rivers into the marine environment. Many countries have established community-based coastal management areas and marine protected areas, as well as other types of no-take zones, which provide a refuge for fish to breed and multiply.
We are looking after the island because before conservation, peoples were coming here and chopping trees and they fish by using small mesh size. There's a change. It can help fishers to improve their life.
Such initiatives are supported by local fishers who see their catches begin to increase over time. There are countless other projects like these, with dedicated people working towards protecting the environment with a view to meeting their current needs while securing the future of generations to come. All these projects offer simple and inexpensive solutions to environmental problems and may easily be repeated throughout the region.
We understand each other. I learn a lot from the community and they learn a lot from me, and it's like we teach each other because it's a participatory sort of project.
Their efforts are supported by national governments who are joining hands across international boundaries through the Western Indian Ocean Large Marine Ecosystem Program. With funding from the Global Environment Facility and on-the-ground support from the United Nations Development Program, the United Nations Environment Program, the World Bank, and the Food and Agriculture Organization, countries are working towards introducing an ecosystem approach to the management of the Western Indian Ocean. The ecosystem approach recognizes that all elements of an ecosystem, including people, plants, animals, and their physical surroundings, are all interconnected. It places human needs at the center of biodiversity management. The ecosystem approach does not aim for short-term economic gains, but aims to optimize the use of an ecosystem without damaging it. Ultimately, the ecosystem approach will help the countries of the region to collectively manage the marine resources on which their people and economies depend. The first step towards introducing an ecosystem approach is to gather information about the Agalas and Somali Currents large marine ecosystems and identify the environmental and related problems that prevent countries from getting the optimal benefits from coastal and marine resources in the region. Scientific research vessels like the Dr. Fridtjof Nansen are working in the region, helping scientists to unlock some of its secrets. They discover new species on every expedition and piece together puzzles about the movement of currents and their influence on the ecosystem. It is estimated that less than 50% of the marine species that live in the region have been described. Working closely with partners such as NOAA, the United States National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, they also deploy autonomous long-term monitoring equipment like Argo floats and Atlas moorings that reveal how ocean currents and temperature affect and drive regional weather and climate, feeding into models which can predict the extent and timing of drought. An important aspect of this scientific research is to translate information into management plans and policy briefs so that the countries of the region can better understand the ecosystems, monitor the ways in which they are changing, and thereby moderate the impacts of climate change on people and livelihoods. Community involvement is an important component of this science-to-governance process.
Our objective all along has been with member states to try and demonstrate what is feasible, what is practical, and what can have an impact, both immediate in terms of the issues that are now beginning to affect the health of our oceans, but also to address livelihood opportunities and indeed the institutional legal frameworks that will allow nations both at the national level but also in the regional context to address these issues.
The coordination of people, projects, initiatives, and nations across the Agalas and Somali current large marine ecosystems is the only way to reverse current destructive trends and move towards the sustainable management of the ecosystem.
The region has been availed with an opportunity of collecting scientific information, translating that scientific information into management decisions, translating that information into institutional policy and legal reforms.
The Western Indian Ocean is an invaluable resource that has provided for the needs of so many for millennia. There is no reason why, with international cooperation and the introduction of an ecosystem approach to management, it won't continue to support us long into the future.